Hope. Thank you for joining us and making us part of your podcast rotation. And of course, always with me every single week from flamesnation.ca, it's Mr. Robert Munich. Robert, how are we doing today?
I'm depressed. Life's not worth living for. Everything is terrible. It feels like somebody died, man, with that gold medal game. God, I'm not in a great mood right now. I don't know about you.
I come in here with the energy, with the podcast going. Robert brings in the realization of what we actually went through the last 24 hours or a little bit over 24 hours now. Team Canada gets silvered at the Olympic Winter Games. It was an incredible contest, incredible game. Connor Hellebuck stood on his head. Canada could not miss more empty nets if they tried. But nonetheless, it was still a fantastic Olympic Games despite the silver medal. Proud of the group. What'd you make of the game, Robert? Let's take the result out of it for a second here. Result aside, what'd you make of that game here? And how proud are you to be a Canadian this morning?
Yeah, that's a great word to use, because I was going to say the same thing. If you're a Canadian hockey fan, you have to be very proud of that group of guys for the effort that they put in. They were utterly spectacular in the gold medal game. It was one of the most dominant performances I've ever seen. And like, to do that against an incredible American team was really, really impressive. I mean, they did everything they could to win that game except bury their chances. So, you know, if they had lost to the Americans and they were the worst team, I think I would be pretty upset. But the fact that they played the way they did, the way they dominated, that game, if it wasn't for Connor Hellebuck and if it wasn't for the Canadians not being able to bury their chances, I mean, that would have been a 4-5-1 win for Team Canada easily. So yeah, to lose in that type of fashion is absolutely heartbreaking. But I do think at the same time, you can step away from that game thinking, the boys gave their all. They put on a hell of a performance. They were banged up. They didn't have the same type of depth, especially on defense and goaltending, as the U.S., and they dominated them. They destroyed them. The U.S. was hanging on by the skin of the teeth for particularly the second and third period there. And it was just one of those games where you didn't get a bounce to go your way and you lose. But you know what? Like I said, they played their asses off. And yeah, you're definitely proud to be a Canadian after watching that performance.
The Americans were bound to get one. We beat them on their turf. We beat them on our turf. We beat them again in other parts of Europe. They finally get one over on us in the 2026 Olympic Games. So you can't win them all, but at the same time, it was just, you felt good on the performance put forth by Canada. It's unfortunate that the one bounce in overtime went the way of the Americans, and that shot by Hughes to win it, incredible shot, incredible. And when you get guys that are able to finish like that on the other side, you got to tip your hat sometimes. And I think that's what we got to do this time around. Is the Americans, I don't think they were the better team last night. They didn't have the better Olympic Games either, in my opinion. Maybe a little bit of bias in my takes there, but at the end of the day, they got the bounce and they were able to capitalize on the bounce. So you just tip your hat and move on with your life. But double silver for Canada at the Olympic Games. It's not often you get the double silver. And then you think, hey, that's really good. But at the same time, how disappointed is it to feel that you only got double silver? So it's kind of a double-edged sword for me this morning. As you're proud of the teams, both of them, men's and women's, getting that silver medal. But at the same time, it's like you failed. That's the feeling you get come across your brain, is like, we failed, and that's a little bit disappointing. But proud of those guys, and I hope that when it comes to be 2030 and we get the next round, that it's just as exciting, just as dominant from Canada, and maybe a Finland or a Sweden or maybe even a Czechia can throw another wrench into the plans and make it a little bit of a three-headed or four-headed race rather than what seemed like two freight trains on a collision course that was the Milan Games. But it was a overall fun game and a good Olympic Games for Canada.
Yeah, dude, it was such a fun game. Like that's one of those games like where you're so nervous watching, like you feel like you're gonna puke. Like, yeah, there was one point in the third period there where Canada was dominating, where I literally felt like I was gonna pass out because like I was just like I couldn't handle it. Like that's just like how much this game like meant to me. But sometimes you get goalied, and that just happens in hockey. And Connor Hellebuck goalied Team Canada, and you tip your cap to him. I mean, that's a guy who has had that label of being someone who plays like absolute garbage in the biggest moments in the NHL. And, he stepped up, and I would argue that was one of the greatest goaltending performances in the history of hockey. Like it was utterly spectacular by him. So, good on Connor Hellebuck. He stepped up, for the first time in a big game, and it just happened to be at the time when he's facing off against Team Canada in the gold medal game, which sucks for us, but it does happen. But looking ahead to 2030, I know one thing I'm really excited about is we're going to have Macklin Celebrini at 23 years old. We're going to have Connor McDavid, in his prime. Nathan McKinnon still in his prime. Matthew Schaefer is probably going to be a top 3 defenseman in the world come 2030. There's going to be Connor Bedard, Gavin McKenna potentially. So there's so many good pieces coming for Team Canada that can replace some of the older veteran players. I don't need to see Colton Parenko anymore. I don't need to see Travis Sanheim anymore. Brad Marchand's not going to be there. I don't need to see Sam Bennett or Seth Jarvis. You know what I mean? There's going to be some really good, elite, talented players coming into 2030 to join the already elite group now. So I cannot wait for that tournament. But it's too bad that they got hellebucked. But like I said, that's just what happens sometimes.
As we move on here, before we do, my wife looked at me about mid-second period. She looks at me, she's like, because I watch, when I'm invested in sports like I was yesterday, I'm into the game, right? I'm one of those TV yeller type of guys. I get into it, I pace the floor, I stand up when there's exciting moments. My wife looked over at me about mid-second period. She's like, it's too early for this. It's too early for you to be doing this. and she just knows that how much emotion was into that game, that early in the morning you were able to get yourself up and into these games, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun to watch the game up until that final shift as well. So you spoke of the next Olympics, and you talked about a lot of people that could be potentially on Team Canada. Before we go there, wanted to take a quick detour to the bronze medal game, and I know he didn't play in the bronze medal game for Slovakia, but how cool was it for you to see Martin Poaaible suit up for his country, play some center for them as well, and he looked pretty good for Team Slovakia in their quest. They ended up losing that bronze medal game, finishing 4th, but not a bad tournament from the Slovakians and Martin Poaaible.
Yeah, he totally fit in. He looked like a half decent player. I mean, he's not going to overwhelm you with skill or anything like that, but I thought he was pretty physical, and I thought he skated really well. So yeah, it was super cool, and it's great that he was able to fight through that injury in the first half of the NHL season and was able to get healthy enough to go and participate in the Olympics, because that might be a once in a lifetime opportunity for him, especially knowing his injury history. I don't know how much longer Martin Poaaible is going to be able to play hockey, because I mean, he took some big hits at the Olympics. He didn't play in the bronze medal game, which means something was wrong, because Martin Poaaible, he's the type of player in person who it's going to take a lot to take him out of a bronze medal game when he's representing his country. So I'm a little worried about that, but yeah, overall, yes, it was cool to see Poaaible there, and hopefully in 2030 we'll get a couple more Calgary Flames at the Olympics, because only having one there was a little disappointing. But yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens there. Are you worried about him moving forward? Because I know I am big time.
I have been worried for a long time. You go back to his AHL days where he was getting those concussions. You're just like, how many concussions can one guy get before he's forced to hang it up? Like the doctors tell him to hang it up. And then he's getting other injuries on top of that in the National Hockey League. So yeah, I'm definitely worried about him. If we look ahead to 2030 games, you think Martin Poaaible, given the age that he is and what he's meant to Slovakia, he's almost a shoo-in for that team too. Until you look at his injury history, Mike, is he even going to be around playing hockey in 2030 in order to be on that team? So I'm definitely worried about the guy. Definitely worried about what he can be. And I just wonder when he comes back to the Flames here, if there's things that are nagging, do they just shut him down and just say, let's try again next year? Just get him back to healthy, get his head right, whatever else is nagging on him corrected, and let him reset himself for next year, because it's absolutely concerned every time he steps out there. And I know we've seen other podcasts and guys like Rhett Warner said maybe he should just retire now because of the concern that's out there. So I think you'd be kidding yourself if you weren't concerned a little bit about the future of Martin Poaaible.
Yeah, it feels almost like a Michael Furlan situation.
Yeah.
And where you have a player who, in order to be as effective as he can be, he has to play a little bit of a reckless style of play. And when you play that style, when you skate as fast as Martin Poaaible does, and you have these crazy collisions, it's almost like mini car crashes every time he gets hit. And it's just, yeah, you think to yourself, is it worth it? Like you make a great point there when it comes to the rest of the season. The Flames are clearly missing the playoffs. Is there even a point in having Martin Pospisil play the rest of the year? Like, should he maybe just take the next 7 to 8 months here and get 100% healthy and give it another go next year and see if he can make it through another season? And just because, yeah, like this year, it just doesn't matter. Like the rest of the season does not matter, especially for a guy like him. And you can also put some young players in his spot in the lineup, which would kind of benefit the future of the team. And yeah, man, I don't have a good feeling about this. It just, the style of play, the concussion history. I don't know, man. It's tough to watch too. Like when he gets hit like he did the Olympics and he stays down, you're like, oh man, here we go again. So I'm with you. If I'm the Flames, I am seriously considering shutting him down for the rest of the year. I think that would be the smart thing to do here.
Yeah, he's one nice Darnell Nurse hip check away from not playing anymore. Like that's honestly what it feels like. That Ferland comparison, I think, is spot on, and it's not because we don't say it lightly because we want this guy. We love this guy. We want him to play. And when he plays for the Flames and he's on his game, he's a very effective two-way NHLer who can provide a lot to a lineup. So when you're talking about shutting a guy down, it's not because anything other than we have concern for the guy's health. And at this point of his career and what he's accomplished and what he's done, he's put himself in this position. Unfortunately, that's just how injuries work sometimes. And hopefully he is okay. I'm sure we'll get more news from Martin Pospisil and the Flames as he comes back to the Flames this week as he rejoins the team. If he goes to the 2030 Olympic Games, Robert, in your opinion, is he the only Flame that is going to be at those next Winter Olympics? Because there are a few interesting Flames that are on the roster in the prospect pool that potentially could be Olympians come 2030. What about you? Where do you go when you talk about the Olympics in 2030? Martin Pospisil. Who else is on your list, Robert?
Yep, I'll throw a couple names out there, then I'll let you throw a couple names out. Yeah, obviously you got Pospisil, like we were talking about. He is, if he's healthy and able to play in those Olympics, then yes, he's a slam dunk to play for Slovakia. Sam Honzik would have played on Team Slovakia as well this Olympics had he been healthy. So I think he is essentially a slam dunk to be on that team as well. And then I look at Russia, and who knows if they're going to be in the 2030 Winter Olympics, but
let them play.
If they are, I mean, Matt, yeah, in a vacuum, put all the political stuff aside, the Olympics needed Russia in the men's tournament, in my opinion. I think they needed another team that had a legit shot because it felt like it was a 5-team tournament. And if you throw the Russians in there, I just think it makes it a little more competitive. You take a France out of the equation and you replace it with a Russia, like all of a sudden the tournament becomes a lot more entertaining and a lot more competitive. So, hopefully all the bullshit going on over in Ukraine stops here soon and you can get the Russians back in there. But if they do play, I mean, I look at two guys on the Flames, Yan Kuznetsov, who, if you take a look at the Russian defenders, it's not a deep group of players. So if Kuznetsov can become that second pairing guy in Calgary, I think he could have a legit shot at making that team one day. And then Matvei Gridin as well. I really see like a 30 goal plus scorer for his potential long term in the NHL, and I could totally see him taking a spot in the Russian forward group in 2030 or 2034. I do see the high end talent there, and I think he could make a team like that. So I mean, those are a few guys that I'm looking at.
I like it. I like that. I'm going to take some low hanging fruit. People are probably yelling at their phones already. Coronado and Dustin Wolf probably both in the possibilities for the USA, depending where they go. I know they're stacked for goaltending, but the projection of what Dustin Wolf can become in 4 years as he's hitting his prime years as a goaltender, what he can provide for the Flames might give him an edge over a guy like Jeremy Swayman or Jake Ottinger. Where's Hellebuck in 4 years? That type of a conversation. And Matt Coronado could put himself in the conversation by having a couple of really good seasons. Can he be a 30-goal scorer consistently? Put himself in that conversation to be on Team USA. And then I put a big question mark around Zane Paret because I know that's going to happen as well, that conversation. I don't know if he's likely to beat out a Makar or a Schaefer or even a Bouchard for a role in Team Canada, but he should be in the mix if he can progress himself over his career here. And then an interesting one for me is if the Flames get a top 3 pick and they pick Gavin McKenna, does he automatically become in the conversation as a guy Team Canada's looking at? Has the next guy, like they did with Celebrini, or like Bedard was in the mix this time around, those type of guys, does he get himself in the mix? As well, I also had, like you did, I had Honzik and Grid written down, and I just wonder as well, the last guy, this one will people probably raise their eyebrows at me though, but can Kevin Ball kind of pull what a Robin Regier did when he got selected for the Olympic Games? Can he put himself in the conversation to be the next so-called Parayko type role type of guy? And can he project himself that far down? It's a lofty expectation for a guy like Kevin Ball, but I don't think well, we see with his growth as a Flame, I don't think it's out of the question that he can potentially get that far down the list, be a seventh defenseman or an alternate defenseman on some list for Team Canada. So those are kind of guys that I'm looking at for the next Olympics as well.
Yeah, in Canada, they've taken those like defensive specialists. I mean, you take a look at Mark-Edward Vlasic.
Yep.
They took him a couple times on Team Canada. Dan Hamhuis in 2014. Like you said, Colton Parayko, Travis Sanheim. I don't think Kevin Ball's all that far away from guys like that, especially if he continues to progress the way he has. So, yeah, I think that one's really smart. And, going back to Parekh, like you said, it seems like Team Canada, they don't like the idea of taking pure offensive defensemen.
Yeah.
So I think his chances are pretty slim to make the team, unless he just is utterly spectacular over the next 3 years. And I don't know if I see him getting to a Team Canada level. Like, I can see him being a really good offensive player, but like, if they didn't take a guy like Evan Bouchard, they're not going to take a Zane Parekh, because, Bouchard's at a level already where he's a point per game guy and he's putting up some pretty ridiculous numbers. So Parekh kind of seems a little far fetched for me. The only other person I think I throw in there is Adam Klapka for the Czechs. I don't know if he's going to be part of the Calgary Flames 4 years from now. He's one of those guys to me who's kind of on the edge of being like a full-time regular guy, part of like your next core moving forward, or somebody that you maybe want to move in a trade, maybe as part of a package, or if you want to bring in a draft pick if you don't see a long-term fit there. So, but if he is on the Flames in 2030, I think he's another possibility as well to play in the Olympics. He should have been on Czech this year. I do think the Czechs could have used his size, his physicality, and his skating as well.
It's interesting that we went through this exercise, and we got a decent list of Flame players to watch out for, and neither of us mentioned Mackenzie Weegar. Now, do we buy into that maybe he's slowing down, and in 4 years it's a completely different story, and he's probably too old for the Olympic Games? Can he get back, in your opinion, to being close to being in the conversation to say maybe he's the seventh defenseman, eighth defenseman on the Team Canada list?
No, I think his time is up. I think his opportunity to make the team was either at Four Nations or this year. But, in 4 years from now, he's going to be, 35 years old? And we've already seen him take a bit of a step back in his play, and just adding on top 4 years to what's already happening. I just can't see it happening. I really don't.
I ask only because we saw what Drew Doughty brought, right? He brought to the Olympic Games this time around. Sure, he has a bit more experience than Weegar does, but as an older veteran defenseman that the team can kind of lean on for some leadership, just throwing some names out there. Just interesting conversation. I agree with you, by the way, on Weegar there. So Olympics over. Flames are back this week, which means, Robert, only one thing matters. The fast-paced Flames action is back. And lots of the Flames trade speculation starts to kick off again this week. The trade freeze has lifted, so teams are free to make a move. So expect to hear lots of rumors coming down this week as we head towards the March 6th trade deadline. So let's play GM, Robert. Let's play GM, but let's keep the main names out of it. The Colemans, the Kadris, those guys probably going to get traded, those type of moves. Let's come up with some trades here, Robert, of maybe players we're not thinking of, and who we would trade here. Do you have a dark horse that not Team Canada? See, I'm so much in the Olympics in my brain still. Maybe Team Canada does trade for a player like this. I don't know. Is there a guy out there that the Flames should be looking at to trade that's on your radar that may not be on everyone else's radar?
So I came up with some trades for Coleman and Kadri, so maybe we'll do that after. But
yeah, absolutely.
If I were to take a look at like a dark horse trade candidate, One guy I'm interested in what the Flames view his future as with the team is Connor Zary. I know we talked about Zary a few weeks ago, and I think we both agreed that like you want to give him another try. You want to at least see what he can do up until he becomes a pending RFA at the end of his contract there. But I'm wondering, what is Connor Zary's future with this team, because you take a look at the Flames prospect system and it's just littered with extremely talented wingers and forwards in general. And these are the types of guys who I think are going to come up in the prospect system and maybe look to take a spot from Zary over the next couple years here. Like, what does Cullen Potter's future look like? You got Gridden, you got Ethan Wittenbach, who's lighting it up. What's he going to look like? Idar Suniev, Rory Cairns, William Stromgren, and then you have your Battaglias and those types of players out there as well. So there's so many good young players in the Flames prospect system that are going to need jobs eventually, and I just wonder where the spots are going to come from, and if one of the spots is going to be Connor Zary. So I don't think they're going to move him this year, but if there's the potential to move up in the draft, could he be a piece that you package with your first round pick and another pick, and then you throw Zary in the mix to help you move up? Is there an opportunity? Say there's a good young player that becomes available via trade. Do you use Connor Zary in a package to try and acquire a guy like that? Like, those are the types of things I'm starting to wonder about here, because I'm just, based off what I've seen this year, I just don't know what exactly his future is with the team, and I don't really know what exactly his role is with the team. And I don't know, when I picture the Calgary Flames 3 to 6 years from now, and they're starting to become a contender and all that kind of stuff, I just don't know where I see Connor Zary fitting in with this group. So that's kind of one name I'm really interested to see what happens with over the next couple of years.
I went the same line of thinking you did. I went straight to the wing, right? Because the Flames, you're not trading away your centers. You're not trading away those guys unless you have to, like a Kadri. You're just starting now to build a nice defensive base. So I went right to the wingers myself. Zary was on my list, and I also put Klapka and Poaaible with the question mark beside Poaaible with his injury, of course, as well. Because you just mentioned a whole bunch of reasons why and a whole bunch of players of who's coming and what's coming up behind these guys. There are guys hunting for the jobs of the guys that are currently there, and the guys currently here aren't getting the job done. So those jobs are open. Those jobs are available. So Connor Zary or Adam Klapka are going to continually have to earn their jobs and to keep their jobs, because there's a ton of guys coming for the Flames, and that's a good thing. Internal competition I'm a big fan of. So that's where I go as well, Robert. So I'm not going to spend too much more time on that, because you listed all the great reasons why. Like, it's interesting because Connor Zary could be that answer and could be that player the Flames need to help the next iteration of this group go forward. He could be part of the solution in the future here, but at the same time, he definitely could be that missing link, that missing piece in a trade to say get themselves that second line center or a right side winger that's an elite talent that helps push them over the edge. So there are those options out there for the Flames, and so I think it's a wise conversation and to keep the mind open that, hey, it might just go beyond Blake Coleman, go beyond Nazem Kadri, go beyond maybe trading a Joe Hanley or a Braden Puhalda. There could be another move, whether it's in the offseason, at the draft, or at this trade deadline. So I'm right there with you, Robert. I read my notes wrong when I started on that dark horse side. I skipped over the part where we were going to come up with some hypothetical trades here. So let's circle back to that, Robert. Where do you want to begin? Coleman, Kadri, where do you want to begin here with these hypothetical trades?
Yeah, I'll start with Coleman, because
right.
You listen. When it comes to like Flames insiders, it's basically like Pat Steinberg, and that's it in the city.
Yeah, pretty much.
And whenever you listen to him talk recently, he's always saying that like he thinks it's like a 95% chance that Coleman's going. So, when he says something like that, I think you have to listen. So I'll start with Blake Coleman, and I was looking around the league, and this is a team that I don't think a lot of people have talked about when it comes to Coleman, but I think he is a perfect fit for the Carolina Hurricanes.
Love it.
So my trade proposal would be Blake Coleman to Carolina for Dallas's 2026 first round pick that they got in the Rantanen trade. And the reason I think Coleman's a perfect fit there is, number one, he plays the Carolina Hurricanes style of hockey. The guy is like a ruthless forechecker. He's physical, he's fast, he's tenacious, and he plays really good defense. And I just think he fits the exact style of play that the Hurricanes play. He's got another year in his deal, and the Hurricanes, they're not the type of team that usually spends a ton of money on rentals. They usually try to, if they're going to spend a first round pick, they're going to try to get, a few playoff runs out of a guy. Mm-hmm. So I think it kind of makes sense in that regard. And then, you take a look at the Hurricanes lineup, like they have Jordan Martinook playing on their third line. They have Taylor Hall playing on a second line. I'm thinking a guy like Blake Coleman could move those guys down the lineup and, slot them properly, slot them in a better space that kind of fits their style of play. And they have a ton of cap space. They can take on Blake Coleman's contract. And the only thing that would give me pause when talking about this is, I think the Hurricanes, they're probably going to be looking to make like a grand slam home run type of trade here. I think they really want to add a high-end talent like they tried with Mikko Rantanen last year. And obviously Blake Coleman's not that type of player. So I'm almost wondering, would they even want to spend their first round pick on a guy like Coleman? But I really think he's a perfect fit. And, he brings the championship pedigree, the leadership, the penalty killing, all that kind of stuff. Like, he brings a lot to the table that could help the Hurricanes win. So yeah, I'm going Blake Coleman to Carolina for a first round pick that's owned by Dallas. That's kind of my first one.
I too went with a team that isn't being talked about a lot. Like, a lot of people are drawing the straight to Dallas thing, which I understand and I get. Some people have done it to the Montreal Canadiens as well, but I went to a team who's I think surprised a lot of teams this year, have surprised a lot of people. They're near the top of their division. They're challenging a really good Stanley Cup contender in Tampa Bay. I went with Detroit, and I went with the exact same deal you just went with, Robert. Just Detroit's first round draft pick for Blake Coleman. For a lot of the reasons you mentioned the Hurricanes need, Blake Coleman fits Detroit's needs. He's a guy who's been there, done that. He's a guy who could slot right there in their middle six for them, elevate that lineup, take a little bit of pressure off other guys. He's going to add it onto their penalty kill, of course, and onto their power plays if he gets on those as well. And he's going to allow what I think is an underrated term, slotting. He's going to allow the slotting in Detroit to work out a little bit better for that group, put guys in proper positions so no one's playing above their skis, sort of say. And I think he fits the style of game that Detroit likes to play. He can skate very, very well for his age. He can play with the mucks, or he can play the let's play on the outside and pass it around game. So he does a lot of good things that fits what Detroit's trying to do. And I think he's an Yzerman type player. And then Yzerman as well is also part of that management group that knows him from Tampa Bay. So kind of a little bit of a back door there for me as well. So I have Blake Coleman, very similar to you, first round draft pick to the Detroit Red Wings.
I like that one. And Detroit, this is what, the first time in 9 years that they're probably going to make the playoffs, and they're going to want to do some damage, and they need some guys who have been there and done that. And I know they have a guy like Patrick Kane who's won 3 cups, but it can never hurt to add another Stanley Cup champion and some leadership to a group like that. So no, I like that one a lot.
Go ahead.
I was going to move on to Nazem Kadri. Do you have anything left on Blake Coleman?
No, I was just going to say, if Blake Coleman is moved, I don't think a first-round draft pick or equivalent is that big out of the question. So we hear that from Flames talk all the time. So I think any of these teams that we mentioned, Detroit or Carolina, Montreal, Dallas, so on and so forth, a first-round draft pick is probably going to be the ask. And if the Flames don't get a first round for Blake Coleman, that prospect better be damn good.
Yeah, 100%. And then I'll start with the Kadri trade. So, looking around the league, I actually don't think there's a ton of teams out there that could kind of make this deal work. But one of them that I saw that, once again, I don't think a lot of people are talking about is the LA Kings. I think Kadri could be a pretty good fit in LA. So I'm going Kadri to the Kings for a 2026 first round pick, a 4th round pick, and Warren Fogle, because you got to make the money work. So you got to take on a guy like Fogle. So, LA, they're pushing to win now. They have the salary cap space, especially after Kevin Fiala went down with that season-ending injury. Anze Kopitar is going to be off the books next year. You take Fogle off the books. Kuzmenko is going to be off the books next year, so they can make the money work. And they need to add a top 6 center for the next few years with Kopitar retiring. They need to find someone who can take those types of minutes. You take a look at their center group right now, and it's not that deep. I mean, you got Quentin Byfield, and then you got like Alex Laferriere, who's, I don't think that's an ideal person that you want playing center, like Alex Turcotte, Samuel Hellenius. Like, there's not that many good centers there right now. So they could definitely use an upgrade there. And I think Kadri would be a really good fit. I think he'd be willing to go there. Kadri seems like the kind of guy who'd love to live in a place like LA. Great weather. The team is good. I don't think it's necessarily a cup favorite, but I think they're good and a playoff team. So I think that could be a pretty decent fit here for the Flames and Kadri. And then when it comes to Warren Foegele, I mean, that's a guy that you can just put in the Flames lineup and try to build his value and maybe move him at the deadline this year or at some point next season. I think it makes a lot of sense to look at a team like LA for Kadri. So yeah, Kadri to LA for a 2026 first, a 4th round pick, and Warren Foegele. That's what I'm thinking.
Warren Foegele is an interesting name you add in there. I know you got to make the money work, but that's a nice little. Hey, he's a kind of a Blake Coleman light type player that it could slot in that bottom 6 for the Flames as well, and be a useful player as they rejiggered some things around. That's an interesting name for you. Interesting one. I'm going to the well on this one. I don't care. I'm going to go straight to the well. We've heard a lot of rumors of places that Kadri could go, and I know Montreal's already made a move for Danault, but Kadri to Montreal just for me makes a lot of sense. Again, the slotting thing works out very well. A place he's willing to go. It's the Flames are trying to play nice. That's a little nice place for him to go that he likes to go to or willing to go to. They have prospects. They have picks. So I would send Nazem Kadri to Montreal. You got to make the money work, and that's where I have stumbled myself looking up and down this roster. There's not a lot of money you can bring back if you're the Flames. So I'm going to do the trade that was long rumored for the Flames a long time. I'm going to do it. I'm going to bring back Josh Anderson, a 1st-round draft pick and a 4th, much similar to your trade. Makes the money work, helps Montreal out, gives them another center behind Suzuki, allows them to have that flexibility there. They get out from underneath the Josh Anderson contract. Flames, with all the cap space in the world right now, have no problem bringing that contract in. And they get paid for it. They get paid that 4th on top of the 1st-round draft pick to bring that contract in. And Josh Anderson he's an okay player. Like, he's fine. He's a guy, and he'll do whatever with the Flames if that's who they bring in here. But that's the kind of deal I'm looking at as well for Nazem Kadri, a player to make the money work and a couple of draft picks. So I have him to Montreal. I went low hanging fruit there, Robert.
Yeah, I mean that's they've been kind of connected together for a long time, and it makes a lot of sense. And the only other guy you can maybe throw in the mix for making the money work might be Patrick Laine. He's only got he's a pending UFA this year, but he is hurt, so I don't really know how that would work. And I'm just looking on Puckpedia. He's got a 10-team no trade list. I can almost guarantee Calgary would be on that list. So you'd have to convince him to waive. So that might make things pretty complicated. But no, I like that one. I think it's a pretty decent fit for the Canadians, and they're going for it. I mean, they might as well. The Florida Panthers, they might not even make the playoffs. So for basically any team in the East that wants the chance to go for a cup, this is a year to do it, because Florida might not be there. And even if they do make it, they might be banged up and might not be the same team. So, I like that one a lot.
I did have a second one for Kadri as batting around, but
Let's hear it.
For me, it's a little harder because I'm not a fan of the player coming back.
Okay.
So it would be similar trades that we just mentioned. So it'd be the 1st-round draft pick. It'd be a 4th-round pick to help the whole contract thing and get value here. But it's Kotkaniemi from Carolina back as well for Nazem Kadri. So Kadri has been rumored to Carolina as well. I think he fits in what they're looking for. He feels like a Rod Brindamore type of player when he's engaged. And then the Flames can bring back the contract of Kotkaniemi. He is a useful player. Some people really like what he brings to the table. I'm not a big fan of the guy. I understand why other people like him, but that 1st-round draft pick is what's more appealing to me, and be the Dallas pick as well. That I'd bring that back. So that's the other one I was kind of batting around.
The only issue with Kotkaniemi is he's got 4 years left after this year. Yes. So it's a big commitment. He's making just shy of $5 million. So yeah, it's a pretty large commitment if you're gonna try to make that work. And you take a look at his stats the last couple of years. 36 points in 79 games. He had 50 points that's penalty minutes, 33 points in 78 games. This year, only 9 points in 36 games. So, yeah, I mean, I think you'd probably be wanting to take back a lot more for taking on the Kotkaniemi contract, because that contract's looking like a bit of a mess right now for the Hurricanes. I can almost guarantee that they would love to get out of that deal.
Some people like the guy. Some think he's a center to some people, and they think he can play up and on the eyes. I find his game's too lackadaisical. He's not tough enough when it gets to be tough. And like you mentioned, that contract's a lot to swallow. But I was trying to make that one work for the Canes, which is why I went with the Montreal one. But it was just interesting that I thought I'd bet that off you for a second. Do you have any more trade proposals for the National Hockey League out there? I wonder if you have a Joe Hanley one picked out, or if there's a guy that we're not talking about that you had one picked out for. Anything else there for the trade front for the Flames?
Yeah, I do have a Hanley one. It's not very exciting, but
yes, it is.
I'm always a huge nerd.
These are the best.
Because I'm a huge nerd, I decided to come up with a Joel Hanley one. So I'm going Joel Hanley to the Detroit Red Wings for a 4th round pick. And the main reason I'm looking at that is the left side of the Red Wings defense is a little bit of a mess. Like as of right now, and now this doesn't include Simon Edvinsson, who's normally in the lineup, but I think he's injured. But as of right now, the left side of the Detroit defense features Jacob Bernard-Docker, Ben Sherratt, and Albert Johansson. So I'm wondering, for a team that's looking to make the playoffs that probably needs some depth defensively, a guy like Joel Hanley could probably fit in really nice with that group. So yeah, I'm just going Joel Hanley for a 4th round pick. And that might be a little rich. Maybe it's ended up being like a 5th, but man, if you're the Flames and you could pick Hanley off waivers for nothing and then get a couple decent years of hockey out of him and then flip him for something like a 4th round draft pick, I think you'd be really happy with that. So yeah, that's what I'm looking at for Hanley.
I too am a nerd. And I went with another defenseman. So I like your Joe Hanley one. I went with a Braden Pahal trade. I found him a nice spot in Buffalo. They need a right shot defenseman. He adds nice depth to the Buffalo Sabres. You can and I went with a 5th or a 6th round draft pick. I think a 6th with conditions on it to become a 5th. If Buffalo has some success, might be in the cards. But a 6th round pick for Braden Pahal for a guy you got off waivers that you haven't really been using lately. I think if the Flames can get that type of a deal, you take it and run. And I think Pahal provides something that Buffalo doesn't have a lot of on their back end. He's a little bit more grittier than some of their guys they have there, and could fit and add the depth that you're going to need as a playoff bound team. And yes, I'm saying the Sabres are playoff bound. It sounds weird, but they're on the right track if they can keep going what they had before the Olympic break. So I have Braden Pahal traded to the Buffalo Sabres.
I like it. Yeah, I like that one a lot. And same sort of deal with Hanley. You pick him up off waivers, and you can trade him for a draft pick. And with the way the Flames have been drafting lately, that maybe it turns into a player. So yeah, I'm a big fan of that. One other thing just before we move on that I forgot to mention about Hanley, there's been a lot of talk about, how are you going to fit all the right shot defensemen into the Flames lineup? Well, one of the reasons why I think it'd be smart to trade Joel Hanley is you move him, then you move Mackenzie Weegar to the left side. Then that opens up a right-handed spot for both Brustevich and Parekh. And then all of a sudden you're able to fit every single body into the Flames decor there. So I think from that perspective, it makes a lot of sense too. So, man, if the Flames could make these deals, all of a sudden, you get potentially a 1st round pick for Blake Coleman. You potentially get a 1st round pick for Nazem Kadri. And then you add a couple, depth picks, a 4th and a 5th or something like that for Hanley and Pahal. All of a sudden, the Flames could have 4 1st round picks this year, or they could have 3 this year and 3 next year. And then, this year they have 2/3. You add like another 4th round pick, you get 2 4ths. Like they're loading up on picks right now. And I think that's critical for their future. So
100%.
Hopefully Craig Conroy can pull off some moves here. And once again, we talked about this. It was either last week or the week before, but when it comes to Nazem Kadri, I think it is critical that they move him before the deadline here and take what you can get for him now, because I really believe that his value is just going to continue to diminish here. I really believe that. I think his play has fallen off a little bit. I worry about him playing for this team when there's nothing on the line. Like, is he going to continue to play like the way he has over the last 25 games? Is that going to continue into the final 26 and into next season? I just worry that his value is going to drop off at some point, and his value will never be higher than it is right now. So just take advantage of it while you can. I really hope that happens.
Nothing I can add there without going on to a big rant about Nazem Kadri. So I'm going to leave it there. I think that's well said by Robert. I think the Flames collecting all of these assets, whether they be young players, prospects, these draft picks, I think it's very, very important for the Flames over the next couple of seasons to make sure they have all those. Because we talked about this as well. When you have all these prospects and picks, at the end of the day, they're not all going to play for you, but they all can bring value to your franchise, whether it be a guy who turns out to be a first liner like a Matt Coronado, whether it be a depth piece like a Jan Kuznetsov, whether they become a trade bait to add to a package to bring in the next superstar or the next defenseman for your top four, those type of moves. So it's very important the Flames put themselves in a position that they can do any of those things with the amount of picks and prospects that they have. It's very important when you're rebuilding as well, in my opinion. So we talk about all these trades, Robert, and we like to bat around all these hypotheticals. We just got rid of, between you and I, 4 what the Flames would call leaders of this team, 4 guys that are very important to this team. You add in the fact that Michael Backlund is getting on to be about 107. We need to start thinking about the next crop of leaders for the Flames. Who's going to be the guy that gets the C next? Who's going to be the guys that the team leads on to be the next generation of leaders, Robert? So let's take a minute here and bat around some names of guys who we think could be part of the next iteration of the Flames leadership group. Because if these trades happen, and by the time Michael Backlund's gone, you're looking at Mackenzie Weegar if he's not dealt, and who else?
Yeah, it's something that I don't think enough people are talking about right now, is just the future of that leadership core. And I know like a lot of people might roll their eyes at it, and they roll their eyes at the whole culture conversation, but I think over the next 3-4 years here, I think it's so critical to have positive influences coming from veteran players around the dressing room, because I really believe, like, especially the next two seasons, I think could be miserable. I think this team could be, bottom 5 again for both those years. And they're going to be incorporating a lot of young players into the lineup during that time. And you have to keep things light. You have to keep things fun. You need those veteran guys around to make sure that the Saddledome and soon to be Scotia Place doesn't become just a completely miserable environment to work in. Mm-hmm. So I do think establishing your next core of veteran leaders is actually super important for this team. And, you mentioned a couple of them there. Backlund's going to be around for probably at least another couple years. You got Mackenzie Weegar, who's signed for another 5, I believe. And you got Jonathan Huberdeau. So I think those guys are all pretty much locks to be part of that group. But then who else are you going to add to that mix? So, I mean, the first guy I'll throw out there is Ryan Lomberg. I wrote about Flames Nation. We've talked about it before. I think it's critical that they get Ryan Lomberg signed to at least, a 2-year deal or something along the lines of that. Because out of all the people who could bring a positive influence to a dressing room and keep things light and fun, it's Ryan Lomberg. He might literally be the best at it in the entire NHL. Like, the guy he's just a buzzsaw of a human being, which is awesome. So that's the first guy I'm looking at here. The really interesting one is what to do with Zach Whitecloud, and I'll throw it to you, because what we've seen so far from him from a leadership standpoint, culture, all that kind of stuff. Like, you can tell he's going to be a perfect fit for this team for the rest of his contract. So I'm curious, are you still in the camp where you think they should move him, or now that you've seen what you've seen from Whitecloud, do you think it's important that they end up keeping him for at least a couple of years?
Man, I'm going to talk about both sides of my mouth here, because if you get a deal and someone's going to offer you a high-end pick and a prospect for this guy, how do you not take it and run when you're at this position you are when you're the Flames? But at the same time, if they keep this guy, he could become a massive leader for this team on the back end. The way he talks about playing in Calgary, the way he talks about the game, his approach, the way he's on the ice. You always see him talking on the ice, on the bench. His teammates must get sick of hearing his voice, because he's never not talking. And that's what you want in a leader, a guy who's going to build other guys up, a guy who wants to communicate, a guy who wants to know what his teammates are doing, what the pairing is doing. All those type of things is what you want in a leader. He's not afraid of the media. He's not afraid to take on challenges. He's not afraid to play all the minutes. He's not afraid of anything. And this guy is what you want in a hockey player. So I kind of look at it both ways. If someone's going to knock your socks off for this guy, say the Ottawa comes calling and they offer you a first and a decent prospect, how are you not looking at that type of deal? But at the same time, if they're going to just send you fourth round picks for this guy, you keep him and you use him because he's a very useful player and he plays the style that Ryan Huska can get on board with. He earned Huska's trust in about 3.5 shifts, I think. He played what, 20 something minutes that first day he was a Flame, and it's nice to see there. So I think that this is a guy that if you keep around can be a very accountable guy and accountable leader, and that's what you kind of want if you're the Flames.
I'm with you. Like when they first acquired him, I was basically all in on
trade him
at this deadline. I'm like, it makes nothing but sense to move him, but just kind of taking a step back and really thinking about the next 2 years of this team. Like you can't just strip away every single player, like every single veteran player. I know you can replace some of them in free agency, but like when you get a guy with the character of Zach Whitecloud, I actually think it might be important to keep him around for the next couple years, and then you can trade him at the 2028 deadline when he's a pending UFA. I kind of like that idea, and also like it gives some support on the right side of the defense. Maybe it allows Zane Parekh to go to the American Hockey League next year and hone his skills there. It's good to have someone like a veteran voice there for guys like Brstevich and Kuznetsov and Parekh. So like the more I think about it, the more I'm convinced that I think they should keep Zach Whitecloud, and I think they should make him like a pretty big time member of this leadership team moving forward. I like everything he brings to the table, character, leadership, and then even on the ice, he's a really good two-way defenseman. So the more I think about it, the more I'm like, I think they should totally keep him. And the other thing to keep in mind too is, if they trade Coleman, they trade Kadri, maybe a guy like Hanley or Prahal, and we just talked about it, they're going to have a ton of draft picks for the next couple years. So it's almost like you don't even really need to add, more picks to the next two drafts. Maybe it makes sense come 2028 when he's the pending UFA, then you move him and you add to your arsenal of 2028 picks or 2029 picks and not just load up on one or two drafts. So like, that's kind of another way to think about it when it comes to Whitecloud. But yeah, once again, people are going to talk about that you're taking up spots for young defensemen, but move Mackenzie Weegar to the left, and then you got the two spots there for Parekh and Brstevich. And come 2028, maybe that's the time when Henry Muse is ready to step up, and then you can trade Whitecloud. So I think it makes sense to keep him right now.
People say that, but at the same time, do you really want 4 21-year-old defensemen on your back end? Like you've got
with the place the Flames are in right now. Yeah, I don't mind for the next 2 to 3 years. I don't mind that.
Yeah, so it's just like you gotta kind of play both sides of the coin. There, you want these defensemen to come in here and play, but be successful. If you're gonna bring in 4 young players who are 21 years old and no leaders around them, it's gonna make for a harder task for not only those players but their development as well. So I think a guy like Whitecloud's not blocking a guy; he's more about helping a guy. You could pair him, say he's the one who plays with Kuznetsov, and that becomes your shutdown defensive pairing. Maybe you play Kevin Ball with Zane Parekh and let him develop his game. There's ways to getting all of these guys in the lineup, but also keeping a guy like Whitecloud around if that's the route you go down. That's smart for not only the Flames organization, but allows you to get the most out of the player as well, both on the ice while he's with you, and then, as you mentioned, Robert, in a trade, say in 2028 at the deadline for a team who's looking for another defenseman. So I think it's smart. That's a nice play. What about your thoughts on Kevin Ball? Because he's the other name on my list of leaders. I think he's fitting in quite alongside with Whitecloud there, and he's starting to really exercise a lot of what's in front of him and develop his game on that side of things where he's a leader. He's a guy I counted on. What do you think about Kevin Ball's future as a leader with the Calgary Flames?
Yeah, he's next up on my list too. And I think he's going to be a big part of the leadership core moving forward. And, he's signed for another 6 years after this or another 5 years after this. So, he's going to be around for a long time. And he's kind of in that age range where the Flames don't have like a ton of guys that you look at as true leaders on this team. And like if I were some of the older guys on this team, I would take Kevin Ball under my wing and really try to teach him and show him what it's like to be a leader at the National Hockey League level. and make him a big part of that group moving forward. Like, I'd throw Matt Coronado in that mix too, knowing that he's going to be around for a long time. I'd throw Dustin Wolf in that mix because he's going to be around for a long time. Like, those are the types of players that like the Flames leadership core need to take under their wing and invest in, and show them what it's like to be a leader at the NHL level. So those are the other guys on my list that I have. And I was thinking, like, do you throw a Connor Zary in there? But we don't know what his future is. Do you throw a Joel Farabee in there? We don't really know what his future is because his contract expires in a couple years. Like, is he a long-term member of this team? Like, I don't know. So, but the other big kind of future pillars from a leadership perspective are definitely Ball, Coronado, and Wolf on my list.
I have one more, and it's an interesting name because he only is on a short-term contract, but the Flames targeted this guy in a trade, and I wonder what the future is for Morgan Frost. If he's here longer term, does he naturally just take over the Backlund-esque type spot in the lineup? Does he become a guy that you can rely on to be a leader? You're going to need some players around all of these younger players coming up for the Flames. And does Morgan Frost do enough over the remainder of his contract to warrant being in Calgary long enough? So I wonder if that's just a name that I just wanted to bat out there and throw out there, because there's a lot of question marks around what Morgan Frost is for the Flames, what he can be for the Flames, and what he should be for the Flames in the future years coming up here for him. So Morgan Frost is just another name with a little bit of an asterisk at the bottom of my list for leaders in the future, because if he's here, I can see him wearing an A and being that type of guy in the future for the Flames if he can get a little bit more out of his game and the Flames can get what they want from this player.
So, okay, let's get your prediction.
All right.
So say it's the trade deadline next year. What's happening with Frost? Are you moving him? Are you keeping him? Like, what needs to happen in order for the Flames to keep him?
I think they need to see a step from his all-round game. I think they need to see maybe a little bit more production offensively, and I think they need to see a little bit more of the engaged Morgan Frost. What we saw versus Edmonton right before the break, that Morgan Frost. If they can see that Morgan Frost more consistently for the Flames, I think that the contract is in the drawer for him. I think that there's an opportunity for them to keep him around. Because if that's the player you get for the next 5-ish years, 4 or 5 years from Morgan Frost, I think he is valuable to keep around and to be a guy. You can't trade everyone at the end of the day. Like, it just doesn't work that way in the National Hockey League. And if you traded everyone who's playing for you. So I think someone's got to stick around. And if you can get that from Morgan Frost, you keep him, you sign him. But if you're going to get this point every 4 games, Morgan Frost, you don't really see him some nights, why would you sign him and keep him long term? That then would become a guy who's just blocking, say, a Cole Reshny or someone else from taking a rush spot in 2 or 3 seasons. So I that's how I look at it. What Morgan Frost are you getting? Because if they get that Morgan Frost we saw that last week before the Olympic break, sign me up for that one. But if they're going to get Morgan Frost we saw in October, no thank you.
Yeah, I'm right there with you when it comes to him. But the interesting thing with Frost is that, like we talked about, Michael Backlund's probably going to retire within the next 3 seasons. They're going to trade Nazem Kadri. They really only have Cole Reshny and Theo Stocksilius as like legitimate NHL prospects at the center ice position. You're hoping you're going to draft a couple more of them over the next 2 years. But, who's going to be the stopgap from the time, say, the Flames draft a high-end center in this year's draft or next year's draft? Who is going to be the guys who filled those spots while they're developing and while you wait for them to get to playing in the NHL? And Frost might be that guy. I mean, like, if you have Morgan Frost as your third line center, I think you're pretty happy because he does provide a lot of offense. He does some good things on the power play. He's, something kind of sneaky in his tool set is his shootout ability. Like, he's one of the Flames' best shootout players. Like, there's some stuff that you like about Frost that you could see having him around for a while. But at the same time, when he becomes a UFA, he'll be 28 years old. How many years is that contract going to have to be? Is that going to be a 4-year deal, 5-year deal, a 6-year deal? Like, what's it going to take to keep him there? And do you want to give him a long-term contract when you have all these young players coming? So, yeah, I think what happens with him over the next couple of years here is going to be really, really interesting. And if he wants it, he can go take it. Like, there's a spot there on this roster for him. And if he continues, like you said, if he continues to step up and play well, like he did against the Oilers, and win a ton of faceoffs and be, around a 50-point player, all of a sudden, yeah, you got a pretty valuable piece in your organization. But if he continues to be super inconsistent and struggle defensively and only put up around a 30 to 35 point pace, then I don't even think you want to keep him for the long term. So the next year, like probably the next calendar year here, is massive for the future of Morgan Frost and his earning potential. So yeah, seeing what happens with him is going to be super, super interesting.
It is. I was looking forward to seeing how that plays out, as well as a lot of things. The Flames back in action this week as they kick off the next part of the season. They had that California road trip coming up. Robert, excited to watch those games. Tell the folks what's coming up from you on flamesnation.ca, where they can find you and your work.
Yeah, well, you know what? Thank God those crappy Olympics are over. We can finally get back to watching Flames hockey, watching number one center Michael Backlund go to town. Can't wait for that. Yeah, just kind of back to normal sort of coverage here of Flames Nation. So yeah, looking forward to that, and not looking forward to the California road trip. For some reason, I never liked the California road trip. Well, it's like the late start times, just the teams are going up against, like, it's good that Anaheim's good now, but like sometimes those games in San Jose and LA can be a little boring, and you're up till like 11 o'clock at night watching this stuff. So hopefully the Flames can put on a decent show for us.
The nice thing about this California road trip, though, Robert, is Saturday's game's 5 o'clock and Sunday's game 6 o'clock. So they're not like the 8:30s we get sometimes during the week, because those are the ones that make my life a living hell, because I'm up at 4 o'clock in the morning for work. So I really hate those ones. So I'm thankful for that side of things. I'm thankful to watch guys like Celebrini and other guys that are on that road trip that we're going to see here. Not so much some of the Flames we're going to see, but that's another thing coming as well. He's Ring of Fire CGY across social media. I'm Vintage Johnny 84, and of course the show Red Mile Rundown, wherever you like to get your socials from. And thank you for following us alongside the podcast on whatever platform you choose to listen to us on. We genuinely appreciate it. Enjoy the games this week, Robert, as we get back to action. There's lots to talk about next week on the podcast as well. And hope for maybe some trades between now and then. But until then, enjoy the week, enjoy the hockey, and we'll see you next week.